Planet Dolan.
From almost falling off a cliff to being chased by a vicious dog, the Planet Dolan crew reenacts some of the best true stories from our subreddit about the most dangerous situations we've ever been in. I'm Hellbent, and today I'll be your narrator. Number 10 was submitted by FazRare57. Dolan was in an Uber with his brother. They ended up passing Dolan's house, and his brother said,
Hey, you passed it.
Then there was a silence. The driver said, I know. Dolan didn't call 911 because judging by what he just said, he'd just throw his phone out the window. He looked at his brother, who was already dialing. Dolan whispered,
Don't, he'll just throw your phone out.
They stopped behind a building that used to be a AGB. Then the driver got out, opened the door, and socked Dolan in the face, again and again and again. Dolan's brother tried to stop him, but he pulled a gun on him. Then he hit Dolan in the head with the gun. Next thing he knew, Dolan and his brother were on the ground in a small pool of blood with their wallets gone. Dolan had the police run the plates, and a few days later, the cops brought their wallets back. All their money was gone, and all that was left was a note that said, I'll be back. Number 9 was submitted by CookieCakeFTW. The most dangerous situation Doopy has ever been in was when she was at her preschool, when suddenly a bomb was thrown into the principal's office, which her class was next to. Everybody began to evacuate, and while evacuating, Doopy saw it explode in a cloud of smelly smoke. She was coughing like hell when she came out. That smell lasted for weeks. Later, that man was arrested and school went back to normal, but she missed a week of school. Another time, she was surrounded by a gang of cats. Because she's allergic, Doopy's whole body puffed up and she couldn't breathe. She had to go to the hospital and stay there for 2 days. Meow meow, love us, Doopy. Number 8 was submitted by Morbius Akura. Shima was at her aunt's house, decorating for Halloween. Her brother was getting some streamers and balloons for a party. Shima and her cousin were cutting paper ghost until she heard one of her aunt's dogs bark and whine. Her uncle ran downstairs and said a fire had started. Her cousin started crying and Shima panicked. Shima ran upstairs to get her aunt's cousin and she told her about the fire, who ran downstairs with the others. Shima heard the dog and saw it stuck in the bedroom. She went to free it, but the fumes started to get to her and she started to pass out. Before she did, Shima called and reached out for her brother. After what seemed like hours, she woke up in her brother's arms as he rushed her out of the house. It turned out someone set the house on fire. Shima thought she was going to die, and one of her aunt's dogs didn't make it. Poor thing. She was rushed to the hospital and luckily wasn't injured. Shima was so happy to see that her relatives were saved and that her brother saved her, but the whole situation still scarred her to this day. Number 7 was submitted by Novice-artist. The most dangerous situation Mikhailum has been in was when he was 14. He was staying at his grandparents' when one day he went to his aunt's house to see his cousins. His aunt had this ATV Ranger, and she asked Mikhailum if he wanted to drive it. He didn't want to, but she persisted and he eventually gave in. His 2 little cousins rode with him, and they drove around a bit. One of his cousins kept telling him to go faster and make fast turns. And being the dumb shit that he was, Mikhailum did it, but then went a little too fast. The Ranger flew into the air and ejected Mikhailum, with him hitting his jaw on the ATV and breaking it. For a few minutes, he couldn't even breathe. He wasn't afraid, but he was thinking,
Well, this is how I die.
But then Mikhailum started to breathe again, so he got up and got his cousins out of the ATV. They walked back to the house with Mikhailum texting his mom that he broke his jaw. He did get a cool cheek scar out of it though. You don't want to fuck with me. I crashed an ATV. Number 6 was submitted by FudgenuggetBlu. The most dangerous situation Gergak was in was when he was about 8, when him and his family went on a trip to El Salvador for the summer. One day, they took a ride on a truck with his dad, his mom, his siblings, and some other relatives in the mountains to go hiking. Gergak and his sisters were in the back of the truck enjoying the view. Scarbroug decided to sit on a chair that was tied from one of the hooks of the truck near the right side of the truck's window. After a while, it was fine, but once his dad hit a bump in the road, the chair flipped backwards and Scarbroug was dangling from the chair for a few minutes. There was a possibility that he would have plummeted 10,000 feet until finally one of his siblings pulled him back onto the truck. Number 5 was submitted by KillerAztec. When Tulip was about 5 or 6 years old, he was walking down the road with his mom and little sister to one of his mom's friend's house. He decided to run ahead and wait for them there. However, he'd forgotten that his mom's friend had an unfriendly dog. Just as he was getting there, the dog jumped outside and started chasing after him. As soon as Tulip heard him bark and saw him, he ran like hell, fast as he ever ran. He didn't look back at all while he was running, but he could feel the dog's presence behind him the whole time. Then the dog lunged at Tulip and managed to barely get him by his sweater. The dog ripped a hole in it, but luckily Tulip got away and ran towards his mom, who chased the dog away. Number 4 was submitted by Scarbroug 101. A few years ago, Spinal Palm got a really awesome dirt bike and was riding down the highway. He was going about 50 miles per hour, so nothing too fast. Then when a black object about the size of his fist came flying toward him, it struck his chest. Spinal Palm noticed it was a hummingbird, and its beak went about 1/3 of an inch into his chest where it got stuck. He violently swerved to the left, right in front of a car by about 10 meters. It was still at relatively high speeds. He then yanked the handlebars to the right after it passed with the bird still in his chest and drove off into a ditch. Number 3 was submitted by /Dragon666. One time, Pringle and his friend were skateboarding by a canal when Pringle's board hit a pebble. It flew into the canal, and naturally, Pringle tried to go after it, but ended up falling into the canal. The sides were so steep that not even a grown man could climb up, not to mention there were at least 20 shopping carts in the water and a bunch of other dangerous things that could latch onto somebody and pull them down. Pringle finally found a pile of mud to stand on until the fire department came. He was still very shaky after they got him out, and unfortunately, Pringle never got his board back. Number 2 was submitted by KillScream 117. One day, Sidious and his friend were really bored, so he had the idea of exploring the sewer tunnel that was down at his house. As they left his friend's house, it was cloudy, but they thought nothing of it. While they were exploring the sewer, they heard loud howling noises behind them, and from the distance, they could see the entrance consumed by darkness. After that, Sidious realized it was flooding water, headed straight for them. They ran for their lives, praying they'd make it. They turned right at a crossing point, which led to a ladder that went outside. Luckily, they made it out, and as they did, it was sprinkling. With that much water in the sewer, you'd think it would have been pouring. What's the most dangerous situation I've ever been in? While I could give you stories about violent people, horrible car accidents, and other disasters, the most danger I've ever been in was actually at a water park. So I'd just gotten off of a huge water slide where I forgot to cross my legs going down, and as you can imagine, that caused quite a bit of pain. But once I adjusted my swimsuit for the atomic wedgie that slide gave me, I was ready to have more fun. I didn't pay $40 just to have to leave. So my friends and I decided to go to the wave pool. It's a safe enough place, no atomic wedgies over there anyhow. After getting bored with the shallow end, we decided to go into the deeper end, which is a little bit more dangerous, but not too bad if you're okay at swimming. Then, after a few minutes on the deep end, they decided to turn the wave machine up a bit, which was actually pretty fun. Well, pretty fun up until the point to where you go down, then come back up, and you're greeted to a bunch of fat asses sticking out of the bottom of inner tubes. I reached around desperately to try to find an opening, but they kept kicking at me like I was trying to grab at them or something. So I did the best I could to fight my way back to the shallow end, but it had already been a couple of minutes and I was starting to black out. Thankfully, one of my friends noticed I was struggling after I got out from under the sea of asses, and the lifeguard came to help me. Before the lifeguard got out there, I thought I was done for. I was just about to go unconscious when the lifeguard gave me the banana of life. He didn't actually help me get out of the pool. I had to paddle my dumb ass back to the ladder, but he climbed out with me behind him at least. There's actually a whole lot more to this story, but it has nothing to do with being in danger, so we'll cut it off there. The moral of the story is that water parks are way more dangerous than they appear. Huge thanks for the folks over on our Planet Dolan subreddit for submitting their stories. We have another question for you. What's the worst thing you've ever done due to peer pressure? Let us know on the Reddit page linked below and you might be featured in a future countdown. And that's all I got for now. Stay safe out there and I'll see you next time.
Dolan kept supplying answers, finally convincing him that a whore was, in fact, a cookie. He thought he had dodged a bullet until one day, as they were walking into Walmart, Dolan's little brother asked their mom very casually,
Can we get some whores?